Welcome to the Juice Consumer Direct Podcast. I'm Carson Poppenger, and here today we're going to be talking about creative problem solving and what we do at Squeeze to help our clients win and succeed. And there's always challenges that come up in every partnership, and there's ways that you want to go about handling those that can lead to better outcomes. And I'm here today with our Chief Operating Officer, James Cook, and Jacob Thorpe, our SVP Client Services and Partnerships. So welcome, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Good to be here.
Yeah, great to be
This is
here.
a good topic. I feel like this is solving problems.
There's a lot to unpack here.
There's so much to unpack. I tell my team all the time, if there were no problems, we wouldn't have jobs.
That's right.
You know, the problems are a good thing, but that's where we position ourselves as Squeeze. Is there's a problem that our partners are trying to solve. Either it's they need better lead conversion, they need better customer engagement, they need better quality, they need better return on investment. All of that is based around a problem that needs to be solved. And
they may not see it as a problem, but it's definitely a need, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think in our industry, a lot of people would refer to kind of what we do as BPO. It's a very commoditized approach to solving a problem. It's you perform a function and this is the cost, and you just kind of sit in the corner and do your job. And we have tried to kind of turn that on its head and have a completely different approach to the way that we're solving problems for our partners. And it's I think it's unique for what we do.
I think, the big differentiator in my mind is optimization. We've talked about that a little bit. It's like, you can say, take this process and outsource it to somebody else, but that assumes that you have it all optimized already and know exactly what needs to be done. And really a big piece of what we do is helping optimize and create solutions. There's technology components, there's integrations, there's all kinds of different things that go into it. And so, there's a lot of great stuff to talk about here today. So,
I'm excited to talk about this. I think when you think about all of the different solutions and optimizations that can be made, especially in your contact strategy, you think about, okay, how do I know that what I'm doing is working? Like what's the threshold, or what's the metric that I'm using to measure my success? And something that's cool about Squeeze, and something that I've really appreciated about my opportunities with Squeeze, is I've had a chance to sit at the table with leaders from C-level of leading consumer direct brands around the country.
Billion-dollar companies,
You watch, you know them.
Fortune 500, Fortune 100.
The big names, big names, and we sit at the table and we see how they're doing things, and sometimes they're doing something and you're like, wow, that's cool. I haven't thought about that. And sometimes they're doing things and you kind of raise your hand and say, hey, I don't know if you've considered this. You should try testing this. This works really well, or this is a lead source that you might not have been able to test yet, or thought of, or considered. And as we have that opportunity to learn from some of the best, we're able to increase our expertise and get a little bit better each and every day. And I think it forces us to raise our game constantly.
Absolutely.
To make sure that we can match the needs of these clients and that have extremely high expectations when they use us, but we really are able to learn what the best in class are doing.
Yeah, and when you think about that, we have that seat at that table. We can then take all of that and understand best practices and compile that, and really understand how to approach with many different clients, many different verticals. What is the best way to set something up, to create a process that's going to be efficient, that is going to be optimized, like you said, and create the best results, return on investment.
Yep. There's times where we're sitting at the table and I'm like, hey, I really don't agree with what you're saying. My gut's telling me that that's not true. Can we test these things?
Right.
And I think if you have a real partnership approach, which is what we always talk about, those conversations are really easy. I think as part of the Squeeze solution, something we really pride ourselves on, and we probably say this every single episode, is being an extension of our customer's brand, being an extension of their team. I had a training with my client service team last week, and I was talking about how all of our partners have what we call North Star objectives, and North Star objectives are ultimately the objectives that decide if the light switch is on or off with the partnership. If they're not hitting these metrics, we don't have a partnership. Now, leading up to that metric, there's a bunch of other sub-metrics and levers that you can pull to get to that North Star metric. But the North Star metric is the metric that the partner cares about. It might be a cost per lock, cost per app, cost per acquisition, lead yield, number of transfers. Whatever's most important to the partner is what we have to gauge our success off of. And everything else that we do is a function of that North Star metric. And something that I've seen a lot with partners and people in our space is there's almost an adversarial nature. I think in commodity-based BPO, this happens a lot, where you're both pointing the finger at each other and you're saying, hey, partner, you didn't send us the leads that you were supposed to. Well, yeah, but you didn't have the hours that you were supposed to, or you didn't have the dials that you were supposed to. And what I've been training my team to do is to find and build the collective we and make the adversary that North Star objective. So the game plan is to win, and we're both players on the same team. What's my part in this and what's your part in this? Right. And when you position it, you can say the same thing two different ways. You could say, hey, partner, you didn't send me the leads that you needed. Or you could say, hey, partner, in order to hit 40% lead yield, we need to have a minimum of this volume of leads so that we can have critical mass. And that conversation based around that, the way that you frame it is so much easier because you're on the same team instead of against each other.
Collaborative.
And I think one of the keys there is to be proactive with it, not reactive.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that's what we find is that if we're too reactive, then that is more challenging from a partner standpoint. And if we can be proactive and we have regular meetings, but if there's a moment or there's a problem that we need to solve and we have some urgency about it and we can go with a proactive approach, then that avoids other pitfalls down the road.
Yeah, don't let a snowball become an avalanche. That's another one that we say all the time. It's like if you can snuff it out today and prevent it from becoming a trend down the road, it's so much easier to wind it back. Once the snowball gets a little bit bigger, it starts to permeate throughout the account, and it's really difficult to eliminate. And I think on your point, like being reactive too, has a bit of an emotional nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
Y'all remember this? That was something I really struggled with when I was
you did 3 or 4
years ago. You remember this? Yeah,
I do remember this.
I was so bought in that it was so hard for me when things were going well. Like I was so hard on myself.
Yeah.
Like, why isn't this working? And I'd get so stressed about it.
And you would do that a lot with our internal team too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well,
I would get emotional.
I would impose my urgency for sure. I'm like,
right.
You're not. And that was something that I had to learn a little bit was how do I take a step back and look at this really like objectively and remove that from the equation. And that's really helpful for me, certainly with like our internal team. I think I've gotten a lot better at that. But also with our partners, being able to remove emotion out of the equation, being able to recognize, hey, they're a little bit heated, they're feeling pressure, thinking a few steps down the line instead of just like what's right in front of you.
When going back to your point of understanding the client's North Star and their objectives, I think we do a really good job of understanding that from the very beginning of an engagement.
Yeah.
Even in the sales process, when we're trying to understand how can we help this company, how can we help them get the results they need, we do a really good job of understanding what their challenges are.
Yeah.
And what we need to do to help plug in and help fix that problem.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, isn't that the key to like every relationship really is just like, what is it that they're looking to get and accomplish? And if you can deliver that, then you have a winning formula, you have a winning relationship because they'll recognize that you're concerned about their needs and that's what's most important to you. And, along the way, what's important to us? Well, what's important to us would be having a strong relationship. And
this has turned into a marriage conversation.
Totally. Absolutely. It's kind of like that, right? There's some really give and take,
That's right.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And what's interesting is that when you're able to identify the key like stakeholders in that process, they all may have different goals and different objectives. Like the sales team may have slightly different objectives than the marketing team. So that's something that's unique about us is in the onboarding process, we meet with both. And we talk about the pain points that they're having, and we try to proactively create a solution that's different than what they've experienced. We ask questions like, "Hey, what's your experience been with receiving warm transfers or with third parties that you've contracted with? What's that been like for you? What's the quality of the calls that you're used to? What's the number that you're trying to hit for your team? And when we're able to establish those levels very quickly and then measure them on a day-to-day basis, that's super, super key. You can't just talk about it and have it be lip service.
Right.
You need to measure it and talk about it regularly.
Yes.
It becomes like ingrained in the culture of that project. We've had to do this with one of our recent healthcare programs. Even with like executive level people that are kind of losing sight of what is the North Star objective here? Like we're boiling the ocean. Let's focus on what we can do today to be a little bit better, and then tomorrow we'll worry about that. Like let's really be diligent in solving this problem, and then we'll move to the next problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really you really get distracted and get divert attention and resources, and then pretty soon you're not accomplishing anything. And so trying to do too many different things, too many irons in the fire.
Right.
So it's interesting. We're talking a little bit about our approach to solving problems and creating success within a client account. We operate a little differently than other BPOs. Yeah. If you're not familiar with the term BPO, business process outsourcing, that's an industry that we sort of live in, and we solve things a little bit differently than traditional BPOs in the way that they do it. James came from a world too for years working in BPO and companies that were sort of having a different model than Squeeze. With Squeeze we have performance-based pricing, outcome-based pricing. We have limited agreements, and we want to maintain a strong relationship where the client continues to work with us for a long time. They're not compelled to or required to. But in the traditional BPOs, what are some of the differences in the way that they approach and structure their agreements that are different than Squeeze and the way we do it?
Yeah, Jake mentioned it earlier. A lot of times it's more seen as a commodity type product, right? Mm-hmm. But the way we're different is obviously you mentioned it. Everything is performance driven, so we're focused on performance driven. We know the North Star, we know the objective, we understand what the client wants to achieve. And then our incentive is aligned with that. And so that we're constantly looking for ways to improve results, to increase our efficiencies, to drive conversions, to drive, yield, if that's a term that you're familiar with. But really it's about outcomes. Mm-hmm. Like you mentioned, it's outcome based and it's performance driven. Whereas in the traditional BPO space, many of those relationships are hourly arrangements. There's a lot of other costs and fees that are associated with it.
I've seen per lead agreements too, where they charge per lead that's sent to them, which
per dial
or per dial.
Yeah, I'm like, what activity are we incentivizing here?
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like on a per lead basis.
Yeah, if they're trying to charge you per dial, then they're being incentivized to just make more calls, not necessarily generate more success.
Right.
If you're charging per hour, then they're going to be trying to bill you for as many hours as they can, or the more hours they bill, the more successful they are. Mm-hmm. You may be fixated on a low hourly price, like, oh, look, we're only paying, $20 an hour or $25 an hour. There's a race to zero with some of the offshore stuff. Can we pay $8 an hour with an offshore center or something like that? Point. But you're paying for that hour, but then it gets padded with a bunch of other stuff. So you have implementation fees that come with a new agreement. There's an implementation fee, $5,000, $10,000 to set
training
things up.
Fees,
integration, administrative fees,
account management fees,
QA fees,
management fees. Yeah.
When you look at like what we do, the only thing our partners pay for, unless there's some development work that needs to happen, they pay for a sales qualified opportunity.
Mm-hmm. That's it. One line item on the invoice.
And you look at like our labor hours and the cost of our labor, we probably have double that in administrative costs. That's just absorbed by us.
Right.
Because we're working to support that client, but we're trying to align our incentives with our partners' incentives. Yeah. And because of the contract, this is really important, we have to earn our partners' business month to month. So we constantly have to be on our game. And if we are trying to flub numbers or throw stuff over the fence that isn't qualified, we lose the partnership. Like it doesn't work. It's not in our interest to do.
Which is the ultimate test, right? The ultimate quality measure of what we do, right? Mm-hmm. Is the ability for us to retain our partnerships and retain that good relationship that we have. Mm-hmm. I was going to say too, Yeah, the one thing I'm sure that a lot of partners would question or really have doubts about is the quality. Are you just pushing over, transfers or appointments? But we spend a lot of time focused on quality, focused on yield, so that we can ensure that the product that we deliver to our clients is top notch.
On every account, we QA more than is required by our clients.
Absolutely.
On every single account we have.
Well, it comes down to hiring the right people and then training them the right way. I think that's a big piece of that, making sure that they're not sending over, poor quality or just sending over junk, and that's something that we do from the get-go as well. And so
we onboarded a client a month ago, and I got on a call with them this last week, and they're like, hey, there's a couple things we want to pick your brain on. I'm like, okay. How do you hire agents, and what are the qualities that you look for? And where do you find the most success hiring those agents? And how do you build your incentive plans? Because something clearly is working here that we've never been able to crack. And how do you have such good quality when you're incentivizing off of performance? That's not something that we've seen before. And all of these questions, and I'm like, I can give you the ingredients, but you're not going to be able to cook it up. Like it's just not. It's kind of the secret sauce. It's the In-N-Out burger that tastes the same no matter where you go. It's just something that's like intrinsically built into our culture
DNA,
as a company, our DNA. It's who we are.
Yeah.
And that's
the funny
really
thing
hard.
is we've heard this time and time again, right?
Oh yeah.
Over and over, people ask those same questions.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And it's funny because it's almost like, yeah, give me the ingredients and I'll make these cookies. And it's sorry, dude. Like that's not. I'm happy to help and support, but there's just so much that goes into this. It's hard to replicate.
Yeah, when we were talking about pricing and some of the things that go on the invoices from maybe other BPO groups and things, tell us some of the things that you've seen, James, with that, and what goes on with like how you staff and what you do with the agents, how you manage the agents, compared to like what we do today.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, you see all, like across the board, you see all kinds of, creative ways that people will want to try and increase their revenue from those types of engagements. Everything from just billing for monthly minimums or, hours, really padding hours to be able to bill more, adding in all kinds of fees, nickel and dime, those customers, those clients. So that's not who we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't ever want to be that.
But those are red flags to look for. Maybe.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, we had a partner last year that we were on an hourly agreement with. It was our last hourly agreement, and we hypothesized, we crunched the numbers, and we're like, we can increase our conversion on contact by 15% if we can move to a performance.
If we can invest in this campaign, if we can invest in the project, which we do with all of our other stuff, where there's an incentive for us to perform better. We invest in it. Maybe it's technology, maybe it's better integrations, better training, better incentives for our team. All those things that we do on every other project, we couldn't do because it was an hourly rate. It's like,
and everything that we hypothesized from a conversion perspective, we were able to execute on. We switched over to a performance-based pricing that was tied into their success, and our numbers were right. We were able to get that conversion on contacts higher than it had ever been before for a number of reasons. Because with a performance-based pricing, we can incentivize the correct behavior from our agents. So we're able to retain our top performers because our top performers in theory can make more. Prior to that, on an hourly campaign, our top performers were our cost centers because it was like a finite amount of pie that was available, and all they were doing was taking more of that pie.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, each transfer that they make or each appointment that they schedule, that pie is getting bigger and bigger for that agent, and that improved our retention, improved our conversion on contacts, and ultimately, it yielded what we hoped it would.
And I think this illustrates what we do as a company on an ongoing basis with our partners. We're always looking for ways to make improvements, always looking at efficiencies, what is the North Star? How do we achieve that? But do it in a way that's even more efficient and, beneficial to the client as well as to Squeeze.
You have something that you like to talk about. Is it like the abundance mindset, or it's the
Scarcity?
the scarcity mindset, where with our partners, there's this idea that like when working together, we can get more. Can you explain what that is? Do you know what I'm referring to?
Oh, I'm trying to remember right now. You're putting me on the spot. I mean,
Yeah, no, I really like the way, I think essentially what it is that when we're both working together, the pie is so much bigger.
yeah.
And that when we're both aligned in that the abundance mindset is there's enough for everybody.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes, that's just something I've seen in life and in business is, just mentality is either you have a scarcity mindset where like there's just a limited amount and you just get what you can, and or you have an abundance mindset where just that you can work together to create more, and that there's an unlimited amount of opportunity if you just put your head around it. And so yeah, I don't know if I explained that the way you were thinking, but
No, I think you did. I just like the idea that together when you're working in conjunction with someone else, that pie gets a lot bigger.
well, I think it takes collaboration, right? And I think that's something that we see when we're working with partnerships where we've had some partners before in the past where it's really hard to optimize what we want to optimize without information from them. It could be maybe it's working on what's happening with their sales team and what can we do to change what we're doing to deliver a better outcome for them. If we're not getting that collaboration, that communication with them, it's hard for us to make improvements that are going to be meaningful or long lasting. Those we can make adjustments, but if they're not if we're not working closely with them and their team, we're probably not going to see the same kind of success. I think that you probably think of a number of examples where things may have like not worked out, and you think back about if we could have just gotten a little bit more. You see the opportunity. I'm thinking of one in particular
We're probably
right
thinking
now,
of the same one,
where they had some problems with their model, where they had sort of a distributed broker model where all of the sales agents taking the calls were sort of like actually we've seen that a few times, once in insurance, once in mortgage, where they're all independent brokers or agents that are sort of 1099, and they're all on the other end of these calls that we're sending over, and they're all sort of treated. They have to be treated as they're independent because they're 1099. They're not a W-2 employee, but they're just their incentives that they have and their accountability is like not there. The accountability is not the same as you have with like somebody that's like an employee that's like trained to do this job, to take this call and to close it a certain way. They sort of all follow their own process. Maybe they don't adhere to a certain schedule. Maybe they're not accountable to certain metrics or KPIs. And so we were dealing with some of those kind of things. I'm like, if we can't work through these issues and improve that process, then this isn't going to work. And in both cases, it didn't work. And so
yeah, and something else I'll add to that too is oftentimes if our partners don't have the reporting or the buy-in from their team on their side, it's really hard for us to know if we're going in the right direction. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of one partner in specific that had stores around the country, and feedback positive.
Right.
Until they pull a report and they're like, well, actually, we've got an issue with our sales here that we didn't know about. And we say, well, we've been asking you about this for 3 months so that we can make adjustments and we can test things. And I think we can have that partnership just like in a relationship. Mm-hmm. You both got to be given 100%. It's not like there's 100% to give between the two of you, 50-50.
Yeah.
Marriage is not 50-50.
Yeah.
It's 100-100. And you both need to be giving equal effort in that partnership. Otherwise, things will fall through the cracks. And
I think for me, it highlights the real emphasis that needs to be there on communication, on flow of information, like you were talking about, Carson. And when you have a partnership approach, when you're in good communication with your clients and you have regular meetings and regular communication, then that facilitates, those discussions, and it allows for solving problems in a much quicker way, right, with urgency. So yeah, that communication, in business in general, communication is so key to getting to where you need to go from a results standpoint.
Yeah, where we work in sales, and we're doing the first part of maybe the sales engagement with the consumer, and then there's a sales closer on the other end of it. There's no amount of work we can do to ensure that that call is going to close when we send it to the salesperson on the other end. There's still a lot of things that need to be happening on that other end of the call and the other end with the sales closer that they're going to be able to take the consumer through the process and close it. We can't close the call for them necessarily. What we can do is make sure that the consumer is interested, that they're prepared to speak with the sales agent, that they're interested to a certain extent and want to learn more, and they have maybe an issue or problem that they're trying to solve. And then from there, the sales agent needs to take them through that process and ultimately close the sale. So
yeah, and that's once again why having those metrics that you're measuring, those success metrics, and you're not just measuring, but you're reporting on a regular basis, it builds that mutual accountability so that the collective we can win against that North Star objective. Hey, we're delivering these calls. Our quality scores are good. These are qualified records. We need your team. Your team is closing at this rate. What are you seeing? Why is it? What adjustments can we make to help you close more deals? And then you've got now that collaborative problem solving. That's an example of a problem that we would solve, where when you have that buy-in and that communication, it's much simpler to solve than just hoping that it gets better.
Yeah.
That's a snowball.
Yeah.
That's a snowball that's going to get much bigger in 3 months.
Yeah.
And ultimately lead to the demise of the project.
Yeah, one of the things that we talk about a lot within our operations group is just make good data-driven decisions. So try to avoid those anecdotal decisions, but really focus on the data, making sure that we're reviewing our metrics, like you were mentioning, those metrics that are tied to those objectives, those North Stars, but really understanding from a data standpoint and from a performance standpoint where there might be some challenges and how can we make decisions and pivots so that we can really improve results, based on what we're seeing from a data standpoint. And so I think that's, from my standpoint, that's important that we always focus in on the data and make sure that that's included in our decision-making process.
Yeah, you got to be looking at the right metrics and have the right data compiled, and that you can trust the data and then use that to make the decisions. And we always try to do that with what we're doing. New dashboards we're rolling out internally, externally, things like that. So,
yeah,
good. Any other final thoughts on creating client partner success with our solution?
No, I just, you hear about, sometimes you hear like the stories about the ex-boyfriends that set the bar pretty low. And so, like with my wife, when I came in, I looked like $1 million, and I'm just kidding. But I think
still do.
That's right. No, but I think that in general, when we onboard a new partner, the contrast between what they're used to and the experience they get with us is really what defines who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's so different, that approach that we have compared to other partners. The payment structure, the level of attention and resources that we dedicate to an account, our culture, our DNA, who
process
we are.
Improvement.
You already said it, the people we hire, how we hire those individuals.
It makes us look like $1 million because the bar is so low in the industry.
Right.
And I'm really grateful. And I was talking to our sales director about this, and he's like, dude, I'm just so grateful that I work for a company that when I am pitching, I can honestly say, like, we're the best. Mm-hmm. He's like, and I believe it. And I know it's true because I hear it from all of our partners. He's like, I go to these shows and I meet our clients and I hear them say it. And I'm like, this is awesome to sell. Yeah. And that's really exciting and validating when that happens. So, if you're wondering if there's something better out there.
And we had an example of this really recently where we onboarded a new client. Within a couple of weeks, they said their results were better.
Yeah.
And
they set a record. They may hop on the pod sometime soon, but they sent out a message to their executive team, and they're like, just so y'all know, we onboarded Squeeze 2 weeks ago. we just cracked the code. We set the record for most revenue per lead in any day ever in the history of the company within 2 weeks of launching Squeeze.
It's incredible, yeah.
And
that's the stuff we live for.
Yeah, that's the stuff that we throw parties for. And,
that's when you know the recipe that we have is the right recipe.
It's a good cookie.
It's a good cookie.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, you've been watching the Juice Consumer Direct podcast. Thanks so much for watching.
Yeah, if you have any questions, concerns, or you want to know if you could be doing something better with your consumer direct strategy, let us know.
All right.
Thanks. All right.